So I hear, like, Darya, you had a very unique and interesting experience, like, very recently.
Yes, I just came from a 10-day silent meditation retreat at Spirit Rock up in Marin.
10-day silent retreat. That's like super crazy, intense. Like, can you
So to clarify,
explain?
so no talking, like I feel like it's a bit of a misnomer because it's like, yes, it was silent, but like that wasn't the hardest part. Like it was, I mean, I was meditating, just sitting meditation over 7 hours a day. And then also like probably 6 hours of walking meditation plus instruction. There was time off for meals. I had a little bit of time to exercise. But it was a vegetarian diet, you actually couldn't even you weren't supposed to make eye contact with anyone.
Was it when you're sitting and meditating for 7 hours a day, was there like light? Was it dark? Was it?
Well, we started 6 a.m. when it was very dark. But usually there was a meditation hall where we would all gather and, you sit on your cushion. And it was never a stretch of it was usually either a 30-minute stretch or a 45-minute stretch. And then we'd switch to walking meditation or switch to a guided meditation or something. But yeah, it was
okay.
I did not go on this.
Intense.
Yeah, that sounds like super.
It sounded way too intense for me.
So what was it like? Were you totally, introspective and just sort of analyzing your own behavior and stuff like that?
Yeah. So I mean, I wish I could say that the whole time I was sitting there and just like having epiphanies, but like it was. I think the best analogy I've heard is it's kind of like getting a deep tissue massage. Like it starts out and you're like, this is gonna be great, and then you're like, oh my God, this sucks. How can I keep doing this? It hurts. But then you're like, oh no, that's good. And then so it's like a mixture of like awesome and torture. And then by the end you're like, that was something else, but like I'm really glad I did it because now I feel amazing. But it was not easy.
Well, the craziest thing is you didn't do a ton of meditation prior to going into this.
0. Pretty much. I mean, I did a little bit.
What? So from 0 to 10 days silence, meditating.
Anybody who's ever tried to meditate, like meditating for 10 minutes is really hard.
Yeah.
I'm kind of crazy, but I was working with the founder of Spirit Rock, Jack Kornfield, and a friend of mine, Adam Ghazali, who was a scientist at UC San Francisco, and we were sort of piloting an app to train meditation, and I was one of the beta testers. So like my whole experience with meditation started there. And but I didn't know this was a Buddhist like Vipassana meditation retreat. So they were saying words, I had no idea what they were talking about. And I had to you do actually get to meet with a teacher every couple days. And in one of my first meetings I was like, what does Dharma mean? What is enlightenment? Is that real? So I had a lot to learn.
So you're working with neuroscientists there, and were they like measuring brain activity and things like that when you were meditating, or was that?
They're working on things like that. The first part was just behavioral. So they were basically trying to train our attention to just focus on the breath, and just to see if that's possible. So I was part of that study, and they're continuing on with that.
But that wasn't part of this 10-day.
No, that was just my introduction to meditation.
Okay, I see. Yeah, meditation is something that I've been talking about a lot recently. Mostly because I'm very interested in. You may know Elizabeth Blackburn. She works a lot with Eliza Appel. I think I'm saying her name right, at UCSF, and they do a lot of work looking at the effects of buffering. The negative effects of stress with meditation. They measure telomere length as a biomarker of aging, so they'll look at the effects of meditation, stress, and things like that. So I've become sort of interested in buffering some of the negative effects of stress because I do experience chronic stress.
Have you tried any apps like Headspace or any of the others?
I've downloaded Headspace at the recommendation of Tim.
Headspace is awesome.
But I have yet to use it, you see, because I'm always making excuses because I have so much to do.
So it starts off with 10 days, 10 minutes a day. It's their 10-day challenge.
Okay.
And it's really easy to do. It's all guided, so they walk you through it from the get-go. I found it was a great way to get started for the first time.
Yeah, I've made one step. I've downloaded the app, and so I know it's there on my phone. I just need to start doing it. I did yoga this morning, and so I think that yoga, sometimes, and I was having a conversation with another doctor that I had met. He's a professor emeritus. I met him in Amsterdam when I was traveling recently. And, he talked about meditation. It's something that he's been getting into recently in his Admiris, years, whatever you want to call it. He's been talking about how it changes gene expression, like 100 different genes change when you start to meditate. And you probably might know more about this, but he was mentioning immediate changes in blood flow to the brain activity, just like immediately, not to mention the long-term benefits that occur. And so, but then he went on to say, meditation, a lot of people make a big thing about it. Like what you experience is like, that's work. I mean, that's, real, you have to dedicate, you have to really practice, doing something. But he was talking about meditation in the sense of just taking some time and being now, here, right here, like, looking at, whatever, some nice tree outside of your window, listening to some music, not thinking about what you're planning an hour from now or, what you did last, night, but just being here and now. And so not everyone has to like sit there and om or whatever, not everyone has to sit there and focus on their breathing. Maybe focusing on your breathing helps if you have a wandering mind, which I do. So I think I probably would have to focus on my breathing.
Yeah.
But
sorry.
I was just going to say there's definitely a lot of styles of meditation, and a lot of them are eyes open, focusing on something you're looking at, or an active. I mean, there's even like movement-based meditations. Like we did some qigong practice while we were there.
What's that?
It's kind of like Tai Chi, but it was very much like it was like full body breathing. So you're focused on your breath, but it's also your entire body. You're embodying the meditation. So that was really
so someone like
fascinating.
coaching you and telling you what to do while you're doing. Okay,
Yeah.
so there is some like you're having. It's not pure silence
It's not
for
pure
like
silent, yeah.
you forever, but
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
And so what, like when you're doing some of these techniques, like were you experiencing like any sort of like feelings of like happiness or calm?
Yeah, so there was a couple like big takeaways. I think for my first big question when I got there, I was like, so I had tremendous benefits from meditating. Just after using the app, I meditate like 20 to 30 minutes a day, a few days a week. Totally helps with my insomnia, really helps me focus at like work stuff. I'm much better at not switching between email, Twitter, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that has helped dramatically. And while I'm there, I'm just like, dude, we've been meditating for 11 hours. Like, why do I need to do 2 more hours? Can't I just like go to my room and read? And they were like, no. And the reason was because when you're in retreat, it's not the same as meditating at home. When you're in retreat, so I would say it took 3 to 4 days before I really felt like I wasn't like completely at the mercy of my compulsions to like check email, check Twitter, check those things. It takes that long to relax. And so like the first day sitting in the hall, everybody was like, we'd be like, okay, quiet time. And people, you could hear them rustling and sniffling and coughing and adjusting. By the last day, you could hear a pin drop in that room of 100 people. Because we'd all actually chilled out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that like when I'm standing in line to like get some tea, I'm like, I can't just stand here. I got to pull out my phone and do something, So that's. Do you use Headspace also?
Yeah, I use
with
Headspace a
Darya?
lot. I just started using it more. I go in waves. I think all of us, we get busy and get caught up with life, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I haven't meditated in a month. So I just started getting back into it. There's a great book called The Miracle of Mindfulness that I recommend, and it talks about applying meditation to everyday life and have it being just outside of sitting, but actually doing other things. One of the things it mentions in there is washing the dishes for the sake of washing the dishes, and the whole practice is about the fact that when most people are washing the dishes, they're thinking about email, they're thinking about 1,000 other things they should be doing, and they're not actually focused on the task at hand. And this is about meditating while you scrub and really being like mindful about what you're doing.
You should definitely do more of the dishwashing meditation.
Yeah, exactly. I wash a lot of dishes, by the way, at the house. I do most of the dishes.
Well, talking about being mindful while you're washing dishes, I was reading, Darya, like one of your posts, you were talking about being mindful while you're eating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's hard for me. That's the hardest
I found
one
that
for
very
me.
interesting. You want to talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, I think actually, so my whole thing is I'm really interested in, we're sort of in the same subject like nutrition, neuroscience, and health, but one of the things I've come up against over and over and over again in my work is that a lot of people want to do this stuff, but it's practicing it, it's doing it that's the hard part. And so I've really gotten into psychology and behavior change in terms of like getting people to eat healthy. And mindfulness came out to be like a huge one because so many people don't think before they eat. They don't think about what they're eating. They don't appreciate what's in their mouths while they're eating, so they don't know when to stop eating. They don't make the best decisions. And practicing mindfulness in day-to-day eating practices is actually tremendously effective because what happens, what the science shows, is that you enjoy your food more